All right, let's talk about one of the absolute giants of the James Bond franchise, GoldenEye. We're going to uncover an incredible behind-the-scenes story of creative clashes, last-minute panic, and a musical rescue mission that literally saved one of the greatest action scenes in Bond history.
So, think about it. Have you ever watched that insane tank chase through St. Petersburg and thought to yourself, this music sounds way more like classic Bond than the rest of the movie? Well, if you have, you are spot on. And the story of why that is, well, it's a fascinating tale of a score that was on the brink of complete disaster. So, what happened?
To put it gently, the original score was not going over well. This quote from the James Bond radio podcast is just brutally honest, but it really sums up how a lot of people felt, including the film's own crew. It gets right to the heart of the whole conflict.
Okay, so to really get what went wrong, you gotta rewind to 1995. The Bond franchise had been on ice for 6 years, the longest gap in its history. The pressure was immense. The Cold War was over, and people were literally asking if James Bond was even relevant anymore. The producers needed to prove he was, and that meant a new actor and a totally fresh sound.
So, producers Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson decided to make a really radical change. They had just fallen in love with the score for the film Leon the Professional, and they hired its composer, Eric Serra, to bring that modern, synth-heavy vibe to 007. I mean, this was a huge, bold choice, right? The whole point was to shake things up.
But that decision basically set up a fundamental clash of styles. In one corner, you have Eric Serra, this modern artist and auteur who builds these atmospheric, synth-based soundscapes and is used to having total creative control. And in the other corner, you have the traditional Bond sound, a massive orchestra, huge, dynamic themes, and a studio process that's super collaborative. Yeah, you can see where this is going. These two worlds were just on a collision course.
And boy, did they collide. Serra was used to being the final word on music, and he did not take well to all the feedback from producers, editors, and sound designers. John Altman, the orchestrator who Serra himself had hired, said he basically told the whole Bond machine to go take a running jump. And after that, the lines of communication just went dead.
So all this tension that's been building up, it finally boils over during the film's final sound mix, what they call dubbing, and it all came down to one single scene, that massive tank chase through St. Petersburg. You know, the scene that was supposed to be the movie's big showstopper.
So what did Serra write for this huge, explosive tank chase? Something, well, unexpected is one word for it. It wasn't this big, powerful orchestral piece. Instead, John Altman called it a kind of oriental disco, a low-key synth track that just got completely buried under all the sounds of engines and crashing buildings. It had zero punch.
And this was the breaking point. The crew just wasn't having it. The dubbing editors, guys who had worked on classic Bond films with the legendary John Barry, were absolutely horrified. One of them actually laid down an ultimatum. Either that music goes or my name comes off this movie. They felt it was a betrayal of what James Bond was all about. The production had a full-on mutiny on its hands.
So the premiere is just around the corner, and the producers are in full-blown panic mode. They make a last-ditch, desperate move. They go around Serra completely and make a frantic phone call to the one guy they thought could fix this mess, John Altman, the very same orchestrator Serra had brought on in the first place.
And here's the crazy part. You know when they made this call? 7 days. Just 7 days before the movie was supposed to be in theaters all over the world. Talk about a ticking clock. The stakes could not have been any higher.
What followed was just absolute sheer madness. Check out this timeline. Altman gets the call on a Friday. He composes the entire piece on Saturday, orchestrates it Sunday, gets it to the copyist on Monday, and on Tuesday, he's in the studio recording it with a full orchestra. Just 3 days after that, GoldenEye hits theaters. It's a completely impossible turnaround.
Basically, the producers threw the checkbook at Altman and said, do whatever you have to do. He got carte blanche to bring back that classic Bond sound. And he put together a dream team. We're talking 6 trumpets, 6 horns, and even the legendary trumpeter Derek Watkins, who had played on every single Bond movie up to that point. This was a full-on orchestral assault.
So, did this insane last-minute gamble actually work? Oh, you better believe it. Altman's last-second score didn't just fix the scene. It turned it into one of the all-time classics.
And the producers? They were beyond relieved. They were ecstatic. John Altman remembers producer Michael G. Wilson saying this to him right after they heard the new music. You can just imagine the collective sigh of relief in that studio.
they knew they had dodged a massive bullet.
See, Altman's music was everything Serra's wasn't. It had that punch, that energy, that swagger the scene desperately needed. It was loud, exciting, and 100% Bond. By weaving in the classic theme, he instantly connected Pierce Brosnan's new 007 to the entire legacy of the franchise, and he helped create one of the most unforgettable moments of that era.
So, that's it, right? Movie saved, seen as a classic, happy Hollywood ending for everyone? Well, not quite. The story of this rescore actually has a couple more fascinating little twists. Here's the crazy piece of this whole story. Because it all happened in such a blur, there was literally no time to add John Altman's name to the film's credits. So for years and years, nobody knew. Audiences had no idea that the most Bond-sounding piece of music in the entire movie wasn't even written by the credited composer. It was this industry secret.
And this is where you get the final, kind of bittersweet, very Hollywood twist to the whole thing. Altman says the producers told him, "You saved our movie." But as he points out, saving the day like that is often the kiss of death. When you're the guy who has to swoop in and fix a huge mess, you become a reminder of a crisis everyone wants to forget. He never worked on another Bond film.
So, the next time you sit down and watch that tank just smashing its way through St. Petersburg, listen really closely. You're not just hearing a fantastic action score, you're hearing the sound of a movie being rescued at the 11th hour. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much of a film's soul, how much of what we truly love about it lives not just in what we see, but in what we hear.